The places that I've been, the faces my friends, and though with murky miles ahead, the fate sings softer there.
Hello, my friend. I don't know when you're watching this, but it's evening here, so grab yourself a cup of decaf and let's have a good chat about whether you should upgrade to the XH2S from the X-T4 or any other camera for that matter. I had to adjust to get a little bit cozier, but I'm gonna dive in with my quickest possible answer. If you're currently in a financial position to upgrade to the XH2S, if you're feeling limitations with your current camera, whether it be the X-T4 or another camera, and if you enjoy what you've seen coming out of the XH2S videos, whether that be the ergonomics, the specs, or the user experience, then absolutely, I think it's an amazing upgrade for anyone. It's an amazing camera, period, regardless of whether it's an upgrade, a first camera, whatever it may be. That's my quickest answer. So it won't come as a surprise to you that my longer answer is basically going to be those 3 points drawn out into a short discussion about the upgrade. So my first point is a question of finances. Now, of course, I am not a financial advisor nor an accountant, and especially not your financial advisor or accountant. However, I think there needs to be something said about buying cameras that we can't afford. I don't almost ever think that it's a wise choice, and so if you're in a position where the XH2S is not within your price range, you should know that there are a lot of cameras that are fully capable that are not in the XH2S, $2,499 US price range. There are a lot more affordable cameras that are still producing amazing images, both photo and video. The X-T4 recording me right now is one of those cameras. So don't get too caught up in that, but focus more on the first question of, can I afford this camera realistically? And then let's move forward. Once again, I am not your financial advisor, but if you can afford this camera, or if you're on the fringe of being able to afford it, then you should still listen to the next 2 points, because it still just might not be the right camera for you. And I think I'm gonna try and make this really practical in these next 2 parts for you to make the decision about whether or not you should upgrade. So the next one, for me, in my opinion, we're just looking practically and we're trying to make this as clean a decision as we can, is the specs. Especially if you are on the fence about this decision, to me, going to the spec sheet comparative to your current camera and looking at your needs is a really fast way to make this decision. For instance, for me as a video maker, I would likely be looking at the spec sheet of my X-T4 currently and the XH2S, and I would say, this is a really important upgrade for me. This offers me a lot of spec-based upgrades that are not subjective, not immeasurable, intangible, subjective from person's experience to another. These are hard data. The fact that it offers ProRes, the fact that it offers 6K at a 3:2 open gate aspect ratio, the fact that it offers external raw recording and so many other settings in the video spec realm, for me, make the decision relatively easy. And if you're questioning whether or not you should upgrade, to me, the most practical aspect of that decision would be, are you feeling a shortcoming with your current camera that could be solved by the spec sheet of the new camera? And that's the XH2S here. So if you're in that position, then I would upgrade, or I would at least get more serious about saving towards that upgrade. If you're not in the financial position to upgrade right now, but you look at the spec sheet and some of that seems either really, really important to you or necessary possibly, then I would start saving now, or start looking possibly at other cameras that might solve the same problems that the spec sheet that attracts you right now does. There are other cameras at lower price points that have some similar specs, or just start saving. However, if you're one of the people who can afford this camera and you look at the spec sheet and you think, those are nice, I would like to have those features, but I don't need those features, well then maybe the next point is for you. Before I move on though, I forgot to mention one or two other specs that I think might be relatively important for the spec sheet information decision process. And if you're in the video world, that is to me, no more internal recording limits and 4K 120, because I know that doesn't matter for everyone, but it definitely matters for some people. So those are two of the important parts of that decision. You might be thinking that I've missed something before moving on to my third point, but I promise you, whatever you think that I'm missing, I'm gonna hit on it before this video is over. But the third point is, do you like the body of the camera? Do you like the ergonomics of it? Do you like the look of it? Because of course the H line of Fujifilm cameras is a little bit more similar to the GFX line and a little bit more similar generally to cameras more widely available. It looks more like a modern camera than the vintage aesthetic that Fujifilm is somewhat mostly known for. And so if you like that look, if you like the PASM dial, if you like the modern aesthetic of the XH2S, of course, it still has the heart of Fuji inside of it, just wrapped in a different package. But if you like the new packaging of the Fuji image and user experience, then I think it would be a great fit. But if you're looking for the vintage aesthetics of a Fujifilm camera and you don't need the specs, and whether or not you're in a position to be able to afford it, then I would say stick to one of the older cameras that is like the X-T4 or the X-T3, whatever. Any of those cameras that are vintage aesthetics, you know, they're amazing still. And so I would recommend those to anyone. And if you like the vintage aesthetic, that's a big deal. The user experience of a camera is significantly underrated. And if it inspires you to get out, go use your camera to go shoot, then that's what you should do. Keep that camera. So anyway, the last point is the one that you probably thought that I've missed, and it's really important that I address it. So my final point, and it's not really even one of my main points here, it kind of falls somewhere in the spec realm, but it's the soft specs. And I put air quotes around that and I call them soft specs because we're talking about autofocus and IBIS in particular, but you know, overheating might get put on that list, things of that nature that are very subjective spec sheet items. You know, we can put 7 stops of IBIS on a spec sheet, but the way that you use the IBIS will drastically impact the real world application of the IBIS and the quality of it. Same with autofocus, same with overheating. Everyone is in different elements, recording and different heat, you know, climates. So that to me is not a key factor in this particular decision at this moment with the XH2S, only because with this camera, I think there are large enough spec updates that I think you should look at the hard spec updates in order to make a decision like this one. And then if you are waiting and maybe those hard spec updates, you know, having 6K, having no more recording limits, having ProRes internal, having outputting of RAW, if those things are not selling factors for you, then I think the next step would be waiting until real world reviews start coming out from production model units. Because please, if you did not go watch my XH2S impressions video, even then I wish I would have been more clear, but these are pre-production cameras that you're seeing videos from. These are not real units out in the wild. So the autofocus and the IBIS and even possibly the overheating, I don't know that I saw any tests about it, but those things are all highly subject to change when the final production units are released. So I would say those things should not be an aspect of your decision-making process right now. But if you're watching this video way later on, then what I would tell you to do is go watch full reviews. Or if you're someone who those things are a big deal for you, then I would say wait until the production models come out, wait until the full reviews come out, look at the IBIS and the autofocus in the settings and the scenarios where you might be using it, and then make a decision about the soft specs. So to finish the video, you might be curious whether or not I will be upgrading to the XH2S, and here's my quick answer, is that the XH2S is going to be added to my bag. However, the X-T4 is not leaving my bag. I am incredibly in love with the X-T4 camera. It is so much fun to use. The ergonomic and the vintage aesthetic with the silver top is just so pretty, and it just inspires me to go shoot. However, the XH2S is likely to become my videography workhorse camera, and it will go in my bag and come out of my bag on the basis of professional work. The X-T4, however, will likely end up receiving a prime lens, a small, compact, travel-friendly prime lens like the 23mm f2, I think might be where I'm looking right now. It's affordable, it's got linear motors for video autofocus, so it's much more friendly than some of Fuji's other lenses, and I love the size of the lens. So anyway, that is likely going to be purchased to go onto my X-T4, and it will end up being my secondary professional camera because I'm not in that many scenarios where I use two cameras, but when I need a second camera, that camera with that lens will be more than sufficient, but I'll also still have my Fuji 18-55 and my Sigma 18-35 lens. So I'll have a couple lens options then, and I'll have the travel-friendly, small, pocketable size of the X-T4 with the prime lens on it. And I love photo. I love throwing on the Fuji X weekly film recipes and trying them out. And so having a little prime lens for as much as we travel, my wife and I, all over the United States and elsewhere, it's just awesome to have a little photo kit with me as well. So that's really what I'm looking forward to, is that the X-T4 is going to get turned into kind of my fun personal camera. So anyway, that's my plan right now, is having the XH2S as my primary workhorse and not replacing the X-T4, but kind of moving the X-T4 into a new area for me. And then the X-T3 will start to phase out probably. I don't know if I'm ever going to get rid of that camera just because it is such a sentimental one for me. I'm not one to be like that, but man, that camera is just special. I still love it, and it still makes a beautiful image 4 years later, I think. And so anyway, that's my answer to the question of, will I be upgrading to the XH2S? My hope for this video was to make this decision a little easier and more practical for you, because I've seen some of these videos before, and in the end, I feel a little more confused than when I started watching it. And so I hope that this helps you out. If it did, leave me a comment and let me know your decision. Maybe you're not even interested in this camera, I don't know. Maybe you're just watching for fun. But if you're interested in this camera, are you upgrading? Are you going to get rid of a camera in order to add it to your bag? Are you just going to add it on top of your current cameras? Will it be paired with cinema cameras, or will it be paired with other Fuji cameras? What's your plan for it? I just want to hear it from you. So please leave me a comment below. Let me know what your plan is, what you're shooting on now, what you plan on shooting with later. I would love to hear about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Have a good night, friend.
The horsemen close